guys, it's Ariel at Fy Nyth. I'm going to do my best to do a little cooking video. As I discussed in my kitchen tour, I don't really use recipes, so probably don't ask me for one. But I've got a friend coming over for dinner, and if I have time to get it done before he gets here, I'm going to throw together a pot of chili. I'm going to start today with my elk. This is elk that was harvested by a joint effort, me and my neighbor here, on the property on which I live last fall. This is still a little more frozen than I would like it to be. That comes from a lack of planning ahead before I went to work this morning. So I'm going to just throw it in there. You can hear the water pump noise when that kicks on. And we're going to turn this on just on low and kind of let that work on thawing out. And in the meantime, kind of the foundation for about any soup that I do is generally peppers, or I'm sorry, not peppers. I don't really like peppers. I think they're good for you. Never learned to appreciate the taste. Is onions and garlic. Got a fairly large size onion here. I would say in general with cooking, if you're in doubt with onions probably and for sure garlic about whether or not you have enough, just put a little more. Both onions and garlic are super nutritious. They're great for all kinds of things. They can kill some germs. They taste great. They boost your immune system. Just gotta peel the shell off of this guy real quick. Hopefully he's sweet enough that I don't start crying. And I'm going to dice him up using my favorite Cutco chef's knife. The way I usually cut an onion is in half. Then I just make a whole bunch of little slices. You do want to be careful with this. I do have 20-something years of cooking experience. If you're holding a knife something like this, you won't cut your fingers. There's no way you can. Or if you're going to grip something, grip it with your fingers kind of curled like that. That way if the knife does slip, it kind of hits your nail and not the soft skin of your finger. So now there's a whole bunch of slices that way. I'm going to turn it the other way, and I'm just going to kind of start angling in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start angling in kind of nice, even little tiny wedges, which is going to give me a whole cutting board here full of little, mostly even onion pieces. So as it gets smaller, I flip it over just so it's easier to hold again and continue my angling in. It gets down to the very last chunk that's a little bit harder to do without it slipping. And the same thing on the other one. If you can see it this time, got all the slices going this way. If I don't make it fall apart. Turn it that way, angle in, just making little tiny, pretty even pie wedges. If you don't have a perfectly evenly chopped onion, it's not going to kill anything. With something like chili, you're going to be simmering it for a long time anyway, and so it doesn't matter if they cook at slightly different speeds, because they're all going to have plenty of time to cook. Go back and check my chunk of half-frozen egg. Just flip that over here. I know you can't see in the pot, but I'm just kind of helping break it up with my little bamboo spatula. And as that breaks up, I'm going to add just a bit of bacon grease. Keep all of my bacon grease. Works great for flavoring some things. Definitely not a bad flavor for chili. Just going to scoop a little bit of grease at room temperature. It's pretty firm into the pot, just so that I don't burn my onions. If you're using regular grocery store or even all natural ground beef, there's probably going to be no need to add fat. Elk is just a very, very lean meat, so there's almost no fat in there. So I'm just going to toss this whole onion in here. That's probably at least 2 cups of chopped onion, and by the way, there's 2 pounds of ground meat there. I know that because we measured it when it was packed. Now, seasonings, when they soak into the broth and whatever, they bring out a lot more of their flavor, and I want this to be as flavorful as possible. So I'm going to start dumping seasonings in here right now. Some of these are herbs I grew myself, some are ones I bought. This is basil. I don't, again, measure. I'm just going to dump, say that's at least a good tablespoon and a half. As I'm going through the things here, just grab what I see first. The chili recipe I use is one my dad made. It's a bit of a sweet chili. I'm going to put a whole cinnamon stick in there. That's one of the things that needs some time to soak. I'll do some whole cloves. Not really counting, but about 15 whole cloves. You could use ground cloves. I just kind of like using whole ones. So I've got cinnamon stick, I've got whole cloves. I'm going to put some honey in. By raw honey, it does crystallize. As you can see, that's not going to pour out of there. There's nothing wrong at all with crystallized honey. I'm just going to grab a spoonful of that. It's pretty stiff. It's chilly in that cupboard. You can see how stiff that is. I'm just going to let the spoon sit in there and let the heat from the stove kind of melt it off. That was several tablespoons, not sure exactly how many. Salt, if you can see my big salt jar. There is, looks like dirt in there. I use real salt or some, that's a particular brand, but some kind of salt that is not bleached and purified and has all the other minerals removed. So there is, actual salt in here plus other minerals that are normally found with salt, most of which are beneficial for your body. Give this a stir here, see if my honey is coming off the spoon. Mostly. Still a little cold. Flip this chunk of meat that's still thawing again, kind of work it apart a little bit more. I will probably grab the camera and show you the inside of this pot. But that's getting thawed out nicely. The onions are cooking. Next step to go in here is actually garlic. I've got my own garlic I grew last summer. Still probably have enough to last me through the spring, but I'm going to finish putting my herbs and spices in here so that it can work on, sorry, I get distracted, so that the spices can kind of start blending into everything. This is chili powder. This bottle's almost empty. That's probably at least 4 tablespoons. I'm putting the whole thing in there. So chili powder and olive oil need to go on my grocery list. I do put some tomatoes in my chili. These are just diced tomatoes in a can. Not mine, sadly. It's pretty hard to grow tomatoes in this climate. Problem with the deep pantry is you have to do a bit of reaching to get the whole way back. And sometimes some unstacking of cans. I'm going to do several kinds of beans. You can use about any kind of beans. The chili I do is a bean chili. Looks like what I've got in the cupboard right now. I've got some dark kidney beans. I've got some garbanzo beans. And some pinto beans. That's a pretty good mix. Just the different kinds, I think, add just visual interest because they're all slightly different colors. I've used light kidney, dark red kidney beans, light red kidney beans, pinto beans, great northern beans. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you prefer or whatever's on sale or whatever is handy in your cupboard. I'm going to put in some whole bay leaves. Do not ever eat a whole bay leaf. This is not ground up, and there's a good reason. That's what a whole leaf looks, well, it's 2. That's what a whole leaf looks like. I'm going to put about 7 or 8 of them in there. The reason they're not ground like most spices is because when you actually shatter up that dried leaf, it gets almost a fiberglass-like texture to it and can actually cut you. So it's fine to simmer them with something, soak a lot of flavor out of them, but if you get one in your bowl of chili, just pick it out and put it on the side. Don't try to chew it up. Okay, so now I've got my seasonings in here. They're all kind of blending in with the onions as they saute and the meat. Still got a hard chunk in the middle there that's thawing, but that's okay. It's going to have some time here. While those things are simmering, I'm going to peel and chop up the garlic. I'll clip that out of the video for you because that's just kind of time consuming. But I did grow, fairly good sized cloves. Like I said, these are ones from my garden last year. And, I prefer the varieties that grow bigger cloves just because of the time spent peeling. I'm probably going to put all of this garlic in. That's going to be about 2 cups of garlic. Like I said, if in doubt, and almost anything you're making, just add more garlic because garlic is great for you and it tastes great. So I'm going to peel a whole bunch of these cloves, just going to chop them up again with my chef's knife, and I'll clip out that part so you don't have to spend 10 minutes watching me peel that whole stack of garlic. This is going to continue simmering, and once that's... Actually, I can do that now. As the flavors blend, I'm going to just put in my tomatoes and beans. Grab my can opener. It's got a pull top. If you're going to ask me about recycling, as I've explained a few other times, I live in such a remote area, the recycling center we do have here actually sends the majority of things to the landfill because it's so expensive to transport them to somewhere that would actually recycle them. So I do not bother taking things to the recycling center anymore because of that. I do, however, put most paper products either in the wood stove, which you can probably hear crackling. It's not very cold out today, but it's going to get chilly this evening, so that is going. Most paper products in the winter go in there, and in the summer they go in the compost. And plastic and glass things I usually reuse, but there are a few things like these steel cans that do just end up going in the trash can here. If I lived somewhere with better access to facilities to actually reuse some of those things, I would certainly recycle them, but it just doesn't make sense in my location. This can has got a bit dented. There we go. So I'm going to just pour all that in, let these flavors simmer together. All the onion ends and paper off the garlic and so on is going to go in the compost bin, which is outside and starting to melt out from under the snowbank. And in the meantime, too bad video doesn't convey smell. This is already smelling like an amazing pot of chili. See if I have time to also whip up a pan of cornbread, because that would go nicely with it. Oh, there, my meat's getting just about all thawed. I can turn this up a little bit now without fear of burning. It's going to be a good dinner. Too bad you guys can't all come over and have some. But back to what I was saying about cooking in general. Soups, proportions, and measurements don't matter a whole lot. They just really don't. All kinds of things are good. I've made a very similar version of this chili, probably hundreds of times in my life. But it doesn't have to be exactly the same. As I said, I'll use whatever kinds of beans I have handy based on often, what's on sale. I will use fresh tomatoes if it's the time of year where I can get them. Canned crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes, any of those will work as well to add some tomato. The main seasonings are salt, pepper. I didn't put in pepper. Glad I'm talking. My spices have overflowed the ability of my spice rack to hold them. And so things get a little disorganized. I should get myself a few more spice racks. I'm just going to put in some fresh pepper. I have a pepper grinder. So anyway, back to the spice list. I put in salt to taste, pepper to taste, lots of chili powder, basil, oregano, and then what I think of in my head is the sweet spices. I put some cinnamon, a whole cinnamon stick, garlic cloves, and cloves, the spice cloves, the little dried ones, and some honey, and bay leaves. So that's all simmering together here. Gonna have to work on my presentation for cooking videos. This is my first attempt, bear with me. Anyway, this, see if I can not burn myself and show the camera what's in here. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but you can probably see just meat and spices, going to look like all a dark blob in there, as well as the onions. About to have the garlic. It's nice to saute the garlic, but I want all these flavors, as I said, to have lots of time to blend. So I'm just going to start dumping the rest of this in here. I do usually use all the juice or liquid out of a can of beans as well. Just blends into the broth. That's pinto beans, garbanzo beans going in here. This is going to give us a pretty mixture visually of different shapes and colors of beans. Dark red kidney beans. If you're going to ask about the dented can, I do buy Bent and Dent goods when I have the chance. We do not have a good Bent and Dent store here in town, but if I get to an area where there is one, I will buy any can that has a side dent, as long as the rim is not dented. When you start getting dented rims, you can get bacteria in the can because the seal is broken. But as long as the rim is fine, a dent in the side will often mean that the can is significantly cheaper and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the food in it. So anyway, I've got all my beans, 2 cans there of diced tomatoes, and I'm going to give this a stir. Now we've got all the pretty textures of the different combos of beans. We've got the herbs floating in there, the chunks of elk, some chunks of tomatoes. This is pretty thick. You can always add a little liquid if you need to, but I think I'm going to leave it thick for now and simmer for a bit. Put that away. Tidy up as you cook. Things don't get very messy. Both these spoons had honey and the bacon grease on them. Kind of melt that off in my liquid that's getting hot now. And now all I've got to do is finish chopping my garlic. And this is going to simmer. It could simmer for, it would certainly be edible 10 minutes from now, but the flavors are going to blend more and meld more. I often think chili is actually better left over the next day or the next couple days, but simmering it for several hours definitely blends the flavor better. So I'm going to chop up the garlic, and I'm just going to let that simmer till my friend shows up and we're ready to eat. Now that I've got all the main ingredients in here, just want to see if I can tip this up again so you can kind of see all the really pretty textures and colors of everything in there. Just, the taste and nutrition are more important, but at least when serving food to people other than yourself, appearance is also important because we all like eating things better when they look good. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of a real easy meal to throw together. I'll see if I can do a quick list of at least what kind of ingredients I've got in the video description, even though I don't have an exact recipe for what I just did. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, check out my other tiny house videos, and all the nature. Have a great day.